I'm going to say this slowly so it doesn't get confusing. It might. Barbara, in your flyer you state, quote, "We have met the enemy and he is us." A statement I find offensive. And yet you state again, "We the owners are responsible for our own destiny." You state, "The faces on the board change regularly, but many owners have lived here for 10, 15, 20 years." Barbara, the board members are owners who have been duly elected by the involvement of the other owners every few years. As usual, your rhetoric flip-flops. So tell me, which one of your negative viewpoints do you mean? Are we our own enemy, or we shouldn't elect board of directors?
I'm having a little comprehension problem with this question. No, first of all, the quote from Pogo is one that everybody knows. That is, very often when our own worst enemy is ourselves. That's all I'm saying. And I'm saying that we, the owners, are responsible. We cannot shove all the blame off on our boards. You know, we sit here and we do nothing. And that is our problem. And it was a kind of a motivational tool to get people to be aware. And then I've also gone, in my candidate's speech tonight, I've said that really owners should have responsibility for decisions. They should be given input, and they should also take the responsibility when things go wrong. I am well aware that owners are, that our directors are owners. And I'm well aware that, but I'm also aware that the membership on our board changes. And once you're not on the board, then of course you don't have the ability to make decisions. So I don't see where I had a contradiction in my flyer. I think it was pretty clear that it was not a negative statement, that it was a summation of our situation here and how we can improve it. And as I've said tonight, I would like to improve it by giving owners more responsibility. I think that would go a long way toward turning down the gain on our political problems. Well now, Gail, I'd like to follow up on that and ask you the same thing in a way. I'd like to ask you what you would do to turn down the gain on our political arguments here, which we all agree, I believe, are negative and are really not doing much for the quality of life.
Well, I think we all have to decide right now that it has to stop. I believe in more owner involvement. I believe the owners are responsible as well. Communication does work both ways. To turn down the political involvement, we should be having more and better communications with the owners. As I said, we should have surveys 2-4 times a year. We should send the owners information on big projects that we're thinking about. We should survey them. Now, I'm not saying polling. You can't run a government with polling. You can't poll over 1,000 people and base the results, take the results, and then make a decision. Because if 51% say yay and 49% say no, it's not a consensus, and that's not consensus building. I think we just have to put things aside. We're in a crisis now. It's like it's reached its point. There is no him, there is no her, there is no them, there is no us. We have to work together as a team to better the galaxy. This is our home. There shouldn't be any fighting anymore. And very frankly, other than up here where we kind of try and get each other, I do think, in general, it has been toned down quite a bit. And I suspect, or maybe just I'm a positive person, I think it will go away. I'm pretty sure that being on the board and implementing some programs to involve everyone here will put an end to that.
Okay, Michael. You can ask a question either of Judith or Stephen.
Okay, I'll ask Judith, and I don't want you to take this in an insulting way. I like you, I like you very much. At one of the meetings in November, I watched you, I watched people talk, and I could tell your expression that you didn't seem to know that there was an $18 million loan and that we had spent it all at the meeting. You showed you shocked when you found it out. And I was just wondering if you would, if you were going to display the same level of due diligence as a director than you did for yourself before you bought your apartment last year.
I knew that there was an outstanding loan. The financial information that I received at the time that my sister and I were buying was apparently not current. And it did show, we knew that the common charges were going to be high, and that was explained to us, and it was explained to us by Mary Ellen Sachs, and also by the realtor, and our realtor, who was a very, very smart guy, agreed with the assumptions that the selling realtor was saying. And what we didn't know when we moved in is that this loan only covered half of what had been promised, and that's when the shock hit, and that's when I blew it and made some very strong statements at that meeting and got very angry. And that's when people came up to me afterwards and said, "You've got to run for the board." And that's when I started thinking about it. Yes, we were given some data, but not all of the data that should have been given to us as prospective buyers. I'm out of time.
Judith, question of either Mike or Steve.
Okay, and then we get to ask the other person.
Yes, there'll be two
Yeah,
rounds.
okay. Steve, why did it take so long to negotiate a contract with Cooper Square? I've done some research, and normally it takes only about 2 months to, once you've decided on a management company you want, it should really only take about 2 months to go to closing. And it took more than double that. Why did that happen?
Jerry?
Steve, you have a little time to think about that answer. You got James. You'll get an answer.
Dum, 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 dum. Cameras rolling. May we have quiet in the room? Thank you, thank you.
Okay, Steve.
Well, of course, you're right. It's unarguable. There are a lot of things that need to be speeded up here in the decision-making process, but let me address just specifically. In August, about the third week in August, the board took a vote that in principle we were going to select Cooper Square. And what happened in the interim after that was the principal issue that we faced was how to determine the appropriate level of the fee that they would charge, which would be based on the total organization. We already knew that we needed to plan out some significant changes in organizational structure, but we did not know the exact nature of that structure. So we had Cooper Square do a consulting study, so to speak, for what our organization should look like in the post-management, their taking over management process world. So we got the results late in 2007, and from there is when the serious negotiation really took place. So it was really 2 months after we had the information from them on what our organizational structure needed to be post Cooper Square taking over, so that we would be in a position to make the kinds of reductions and also be in a position to even streamline further. We needed to know that in advance before we could move to contract. That's really why.